For Sunday, July 30th, you found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, there is a man ban in the Atlanta parks. Cobb County says no to higher taxes, and the Democrats' lineup at the state capitol shuffles a bit. We'll explain it all to you coming up next on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Glad you could be with us. We tape in the aftermath of John McCain's stunning vote against repealing Obamacare. We're not going to talk about that because Chris Wallace follows the morning edition of the Georgia Gang, and I'm sure that's will be his topic, but it still is an astonishing sort of a thing that it happened with John McCain, probably maybe his last vote, who knows. Anyway, the news from the city and the region is not quite so monumental. In fact, in some ways it's petty, but it is interesting that Sheriff Jeff Mann of DeKalb County, who fought every inch of this public indecency charge against him that was incurred against him in Piedmont Park when he allegedly exposed himself to a policeman.
And then fled.
Then ran away. He fought this thing tooth and tong, and in the end, Jeff pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanors, but not to public indecency. Have I got that right?
That's correct.
He cut a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, he...
just before trial.
That's right. He entered a plea, cut a deal, got a $2,000 fine, has to pay 80 hours of community service. He has served 2 suspensions, one self-imposed for a week, the other imposed by the governor for 40 days. And now the Post, the certification group of law enforcement officers in the state of Georgia, will take a look at this to see whether it will sanction him or revoke his law enforcement certification. They have the right to do that, in which case he would have to leave office.
You know, I think we said this in previous discussions. There used to be a concept called shame. You get caught in something like that, you just go away.
Well, he should have resigned. I agree with you.
He tried double jeopardy as an excuse. That was a silly kind of a thing. You can't be tried twice for it. Well, penalized twice. He might be penalized a 3rd time, as Jeff just said.
Well, Jeff outlined it very well, and I hope he's gone, and I hope he does lose his certification. He's a disgrace to the badge. Imagine this role model.
Trump, though. It's the era of Trump.
Well, that has nothing to do with it, Alexis.
Yeah,
you know, we should be holding everyone to high standards.
We should, but
and
we do not,
for this man to be overseeing a jail where people have gotten far harsher sentences for this type of thing, I thought it was a very lenient deal.
But I mean, the Jeff Mann that I know, he's got a law degree from the University of Michigan. Was a respected man in the county. He should just have gone away.
Yeah, it's sad.
Gone away for a while. Nothing wrong with that. All right. Well, that case seems to be resolved until we hear about his certification.
One of the worst publicly handled cases that we've seen, certainly this year, if not in many years.
Yeah, it's bad.
Now, order is restored in Cobb County. I thought that was interesting. And we've talked about it. In fact, I joked halfway seriously just a week or so ago that the Democrats had taken over Cobb County because they were going to raise the property tax rate. Well, the new commission chairman suffered his first defeat. Mike Boyce loses 3-2, and the county will retain the same millage rate as it did in 2016. That's the Cobb we expect, isn't it?
Well, it is. Bob Weatherford, one of the commissioners, sided with Joanne Burrell and with Bob Ott, and it was a 3-2 vote to keep the millage rate the same. And you had actually said that you thought a tax revolt was brewing in that county and others, and indeed, it was just 2 weeks you had citizen pressure. Weatherford actually was saying he would be for the hike, and then he switched. He represents that Marietta area.
They also, I think, is a backlash to the Braves subsidies that they are providing. Well, and the way that was handled.
And Mike Boyce said the reason he wanted the tax increase was to pay for some parks bond money that hadn't been paid after it had been approved by the people. So I guess he was.
And the commission there took $4 million out of their $10 million contingency fund, economic contingency fund, which was set up smartly during the Obama recession just for something like this.
Now, we've talked and we've hinted at it, and we've kind of nibbled around it, but this decision in Fulton County to live with the 2016 property assessment values is starting to have a rebound effect. Alexis, I noticed Maria Karstafen said that the City of Atlanta School Board won't be able to give teacher pay raises and some other things because it won't have the additional money for which it had budgeted already.
Right. They were counting on that additional revenue to offer those pay raises and stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see what does happen and how they are able to.
The question then becomes, is this going to happen in the 15 or 16 cities in Fulton County? I mean, I would think that some of the more well-heeled cities, Sandy Springs, Milton, and so forth, have adequate reserves to readjust their budgets. I would think some of the lesser cities, such as, I don't mean in terms of their people, but the smaller ones like East Point, Hapeville, they might have to.
Yeah, but they don't have school systems.
No, right. Well, they still got property taxes that pay for.
Yeah, that pay for other
I would think that even some of the north side cities, I mean, especially where you have these huge property tax increases, will be looking forward to being able to commit some of those public funds to growth, to parks, to all kinds of things that could help them out, and now they can't do it. That's why shouldn't have had that freeze. Cities, municipalities should have had the opportunity to adjust millage rates as they saw fit as a result of the higher assessments. That's the way this is supposed to work.
However, the other thing that happened was the state legislature imposed the no tax increase measure on the county. So
well, and to Jeff's point, it goes back to proper management of some of these cities too. You have, just like we were talking about in Cobb County a minute ago, you had a contingency fund. And Jeff and I have always said you've got to balance property tax increases with assessments and be watching what's going to happen every year. That's just good planning.
And if you want to spend more, you raise the millage rate. You be honest with the taxpayer, right?
Be transparent.
Cobb tried that.
If you have higher assessments, you can lower the millage rate and still end up with the higher with the higher tax.
Well, let me tell you,
that's right.
Let me make a quick point here. This thing's still got to go to the state, the Fulton County Digest. The idea of using 2016 as the base. They've got to go before the state revenue department, and it isn't all clear that despite the use of an obscure state law, they're going to be able to get this by the state revenue department. I think this could end up with the Attorney General, as a matter of law, saying, look, state law says you have to assess your properties every year and you have to put those assessments into place. I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, but they also, some of the increased assessments may go through because of the increase in the property value, so they may end up with more money anyway. So we'll just have to see.
Well, that could be. The ones that aren't appealed, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, now in the city of Atlanta, the news was a little thin. I think the big story, I get accused of overdoing sports, but I think the biggest story in the city of Atlanta is the roof. Arthur Blank's one sort of setback. That guy, you know, he's got the Midas touch. But the roof on the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium will not be opened for the first several events to be held there. The roof will be closed.
That's right, and it is a setback. I'm sure, you know, Arthur Blank has done a lot. It's a great project. There's excitement, and that is the one problem. Now, you can open it manually. What does it take, 6 hours or something like that? But electronically, they've got some of the best experts in the world, I think, trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other story was funny, which was the mayor, once again, Mayor Kasim Reed, swatting gnats with snow shovels. Bill Torpy wrote a funny column about him in the AJC. Dale Russell had fun with him on Fox 5 News. And the mayor just responded like it was nuclear war. But look, the mayor was wrong. You don't have to go business first class to Cape Town, South Africa, and stick the taxpayers with an additional $60,000 for your personal comfort.
Well, they weren't stuck with $60,000. I think that's one of the frustrations of the mayor. And the other thing is, when you go to Cape Town for 3 days for meetings, where do you sleep? If I'm not mistaken, it's a 20-hour trip to get over there. You're there for just a couple of days, then you turn around and you come right back.
Well, there's
I think that you ought to be able to sleep on the plane. Yes. We have got people out here who have put in 7, 8 years of their lives in city government. I've talked to a couple of them, and for this to be their legacy, I don't think that they're very happy with that.
Well, there was also
tough. Oh, poor babies.
There was also the mayor and City Hall stonewalled with this TV station and others in getting the information. They were claiming someone else were paying for the trip.
It's like sometimes
we
when
haven't
Jeff
seen that.
Sometimes when Jeff doesn't get his invoice in
let's
on
have
time.
let's have Donald Trump go over there.
Oh, here we go. You have to switch to Trump.
We got to get out. We got to get out. When we come back, we'll stay on that general theme of public officials and their paychecks. This time, it could be the State Transportation Commissioner. We'll be right back.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Now, I'm going to tread carefully on this next item because it's about a public servant that I think is very deserving, as opposed to the Kasim Reed item where a whole bunch of city employees took a trip to beautiful Cape Town using the lap of luxury of the airlines and staying at expensive hotels. Anyway, the State Transportation Board is considering a 40% raise for Commissioner Russell McMurray, would push him to $350,000.
It's crazy.
Now, he did a great job on I-85 and all that.
That's crazy.
But are we losing grip here on what public officials are supposed to be? They're supposed to cash in afterwards, not on the job.
Well, at least a bonus, but not a pay raise.
I agree.
My goodness.
A modest bonus would have done it, but this is a bit much.
Well, this is 89% in two years, if I'm not mistaken. He started out at a little less than 200,000. He got a raise earlier from around 185 to 250, and now 100 from 250 to 350 for fixing something the Department of Transportation caused. If I'm wrong about that?
Careless storage of kindling.
That is correct. And I think you're making a very good point.
But nonetheless, I think these salaries, you know, if you look at the state's highest paid people, it's not the governor.
Right.
It shouldn't be the transportation commissioner.
No.
It's the director of the ports. Here's a question.
No, it should be the Fulton County Tax Commissioner. He's the highest paid person.
Well, he
in
is.
the state.
What's he get paid? Yeah,
as it turns out, he is.
Yeah.
But he gets a cut of this collection, so.
Maybe that we ought to apply like a private sector rule to this. Can you equal that salary somewhere else? That guy who's getting $1.5 million to run the ports, I'm sure he's terrific. But can he get somebody going to pay him $1.5 million to go about his business?
Well, the other thing is, I mean, we got to look at the reason why the thing got fixed so quickly in the first place, and that was because of the financial incentives given the contractors.
That's right.
Right.
All right.
Not any
Now,
of his great managerial.
The latest assault
oversight.
in the Democrats' attempt to make sure that everybody can vote whenever they want at any hour of the day or night, at any time with no form of identification or whatever, right? That seems to be what we're seeing. All these lawsuits, all these assaults on the Secretary of State's systems. We had another one this week. They're complaining because they're checking up the voter rolls. But in Gwinnett County, our friends at Galeo, the Latin American elected officials, are challenging all the cities about their ballots not being in English and their websites not being in
Spanish.
Spanish. And their websites not being in Spanish. It's actually federal law that they have to do that.
It's an amendment to the Voting Rights Act that was done years later after the Voting Rights Act. If there's a certain percentage in a municipality or a subdivision of a language group, you need to start having some bilingual materials, election materials.
But do we want people voting who can't read English?
No.
How do they know whom they're voting for?
Well, no, and you're making a great point.
Well,
the requirement for U.S. citizenship is proficiency in English. And so this is something that I hope is going to be repealed. Now, already, it's law already that you need to, if someone doesn't have proficiency in English, there are people at the polling places in Gwinnett County. And I have to say, the other side of the story is that there are some materials being done. You can get help at any polling place if you don't know English. So this is unnecessary. Galeo, this radical group, is trying to raise money. They're trying to raise money, and it's a publicity stunt.
I think that they're actually trying to get federal law enforced.
They're trying to win Gwinnett County for the Democrats.
Even the liberal AJC says these cities and counties are complying.
But it's in the best interest to have an informed citizenry, and if people have difficulty with the English, they should be able to have it in Spanish. That's a native language.
They cannot vote in an informed fashion if they can't speak English.
I don't know how long it's going to take y'all to bring along, but do you remember in the 1980s, Dick, when we had Cobb County had their little ordinance that said that you couldn't have a sign in Spanish in Cobb County?
I remember that.
You remember how ridiculous that that was.
Yes.
So we're having a march toward progress. Y'all aren't quite there yet, but
Well,
we're getting there.
Let's see, Jeff. Let's
Right.
do the math here. There's over 325 languages spoken in the United States. So in Jeff Dickerson's dream world, we'd have signs everywhere and materials,
Urdu,
it
sure,
would
why
break the
not?
bank.
If you were voting in Ukraine and you didn't know the Russian language, you just have to vote for whoever Paul Manafort told you to.
I'm going to tell you, we're getting there. You know what I mean? We're getting closer and closer to Ukraine or some, I don't know, some third world country. We're getting there. We're about that profane, that's for sure.
Phil's on a state board, and that board is related to immigration. I know you're a topic that you're an expert in, and you guys actually handed out some penalties.
Well, we did. I'm a member of the Immigration Enforcement Review Board, and that's a board that was set up several years ago to make sure that public benefits are used legally by legal citizens and residents. And what was happening in a nutshell is that the city of Atlanta was not in compliance with state law. They weren't using what they call the SAVE verification system. It's a federal database. And so the board voted to find Atlanta not in compliance, and we fined them, and they are now, we hope, knock on wood, going to be in compliance.
All right, well, that's good. We a couple of other little state items that we're not going to have time to get to, it doesn't look like. So let's go to our next scheduled break and regroup and figure out what direction we will take. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
And before we turn to state politics, let's look at a story that's afflicted, I guess you could say, the state prison system. I look at it more in the category of fun, but I think, Phil, you think it's much more serious, this issue of drones being used to send in supplies to prisoners, inmates in our state prisons.
That's right. We can laugh, but it's dead serious, and this is getting worse. Everything from drugs to cell phones are being dropped in. And you know, the problem with cell phones in these prisons, and you've heard us talk about this before, Dick, is that it controls gang activity in various prisons. We had information, you remember 2 years ago we talked about it, 2 Georgia prisons actually controlled by gangs and not the wardens. Right. They had to fire a warden. So this is serious, and they better get control of it. The Department of Corrections is way behind.
Well, what do they need? Their own drones, or do they need anti-aircraft guns?
Listen, I'm in favor of if you can get them, shoot them down.
Ack, you know.
Mercy,
right, I'm sorry. I know it's serious, but I just still think it's more like a movie script than a social problem.
You can't make this stuff up.
All right, now what isn't a movie script is something that happened earlier this week. Now this is, for you political people, this is real inside baseball, so bear with us, it's important. And somebody named Bob Trammell, a little-known member of the State House from Luthersville, is the new minority leader in the State House for the Democrats, replacing Stacey Abrams, who's running for governor. And the significance of it is that Trammell is white, and he defeated 2 black lawmakers of long-standing service. What does this mean in the scheme of things? I mean, I think that the minority delegation to the House is primarily black. Those positions seem to have been claimed by black lawmakers. Well, what happened here?
Because the lines were gerrymandered to do that.
What happened here?
Well, this is a vote of the Democratic caucus.
This is a vote of the Democratic caucus. I mean, and Democrats get to vote for the leader of their choice, and this was the leader of their choice. I mean, that you would expect, though. Here's the thing. You would expect for Democrats to have a black leader. Why is that? Because we have segregated political parties in the state of Georgia. And why is that?
And because
all of the white Democrats who once dominated, well, not that long ago, Phil, dominated the Georgia General Assembly, went home, changed their clothes, came back Republican.
Right.
Well,
that's why we have racially identified political parties in Georgia.
And then proceeded
half
to
of it.
And we have blacks who continue to vote
districts
against their self-interest, voting for the servitude of the Democratic Party and its welfare programs.
Oh, well, that's absurd.
Let's go back to the politics. Let's go back to the politics of it. What's interesting is the Democratic caucus, and Jeff, your point is right, but I'm going to expand on it. It fractured between 2 veteran blacks, Calvin Smyrie, the very respected dean of the House caucus. He lost. He put up another candidate. So I think we're seeing racial fault lines here, because if the Democrats are going to win in this state, and you all have said this, and I agree with you, they're going to have to form some sort of coalition with whites, which, as you point out correctly, they've been losing.
Well, yeah, either
look
that or
at
the
the
demographics
race.
are going to continue to change in our purple state.
But look at the governor's race. It's happened there, too, where Stacey Abrams is running for governor.
So is
And now
Stacey
is Stacey Evans, a white Democrat, comes in on that.
You can see the fracture
And you can
lines
see
there.
the fissure developing right there. I don't know what this all means
I think
yet.
well, I don't think that it's a recent fracture. I think this has always been a traditional.
Well, why did Democrat control, going back to Jeff's point, collapse back 20 years ago? The Democrat coalition,
they all switched.
The Democrat coalition
Nathan
could
Dean
not
used to
have
be
whites and blacks together, and the
Nathan
agendas
Dean
were
used
far
to be
too
a
different.
Democrat.
And you remember Charles Walker? He got so radical, he radicalized that Democrat caucus.
Oh, I don't think that that's true at all. You've had moderates who've been able to work both sides, like Calvin Smyre, there for 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
40 years.
Oh, I know. I think Calvin is a great example of people working together, but the Calvin Smyres are not being listened to.
Well,
Yeah, I think that's the point. The left of the Democratic Party has gone much farther to the left, even at the state capitol, where fiscal conservatism, anyway, is usually the order of the day. But I just think it's interesting, these fissures. I mean, here you had two long-standing black lawmakers lose to a guy named Bob Trammell, who's only been there since 2015. In other words, I think that's it, 2015,
Yeah,
right?
he just got elected in that's
He's
right.
brand new. Interesting thing. All right, just wrapping up, I want to make the point that while everybody's been focused on the health care bill in the U.S. Senate, the House of Representatives is passing legislation right and left. They're doing what Trump said he wanted to do. And you'll notice that Doug Collins from Gainesville shepherded a military appropriations bill through. There's all kinds of stuff passing.
Here
There's
it
stuff
is.
involving
The question is
the
whether or not the President of the United States is going to sign it. For instance, that Russian sanctions bill, whether he's going to veto that.
He said he'd
He
sign
said
it.
he'd sign it.
Well, he doesn't have any choice. It passed by over 400
Right,
votes.
it's veto-proof.
And let me give a shout
whether
out,
he's
Dick.
gonna
Let
sign
me
it
give
or
a
not.
shout out to Democrat Sanford Bishop and David Scott, two of our congressmen. They vote for these military appropriation increases, unlike Hank Johnson and John Lewis, who vote against every military buildup.
All right, we got to
they
get
have
out. When we come
military-
back, winners and losers, maybe we'll have time to talk about Coke Sugar Zero diet. We'll straighten it out. Stay with us.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And we will begin our winners and losers segment with the usual reminder. Don't forget the Facebook page. We're there. And we're on YouTube if you've missed any episodes. Jeffrey, I turn to you, winners and losers.
Well, we got a couple of new folks in town who are running things. One is Terry Wand, a very capable lawyer who is the new executive director of the Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority. Another, of course, is Rob Rumley. I don't know if I mentioned Rob before, but he is the new chair of the Atlanta Housing Authority. And so they're both winners. I think that the loser in town here has got to be Jeff Mann. You know, he fought this tooth and nail and then pled guilty. And I don't know what's going on in Washington, but it is crass and profane, this administration is. It's an embarrassment. It should be to all Americans, no matter your political stripe. I hope that you all will agree that the Scaramucci's of the world and any other thugs that they bring into the White House are losers.
Here we go.
All right. Alexis, what do you have?
Okay, I agree with you on that. I'm going to.
Well, you don't like The Sopranos playing out in front of your very eyes?
I don't like our government as reality TV. That's not fun, not good.
All right.
All right, so I'm going to salute Chandra Stevens Albright. She's the new managing director for True Colors Theater Company. She is placing Jennifer McEwen, who is now taking over arts and culture at Hilton Head. So congratulations to both of them. And Brian Jackson is the new VP of Programming Management for the H.J. Russell Company, and he's going to manage all their new projects. And then Gene Kansas has bought the SEF building on Auburn Avenue that houses the Apex Museum, and he's going to convert that to some office space and other exciting things for the area. C.T. Vivian's donating his 6,000 book collection to the new Cook Park that's going to have a library in the Peace Monument in the base of that. So congratulations to all these folks.
And Tyler Perry got a tax break in Cobb County. Phil, what do you have?
I saw that. You know, I'm going to agree with Jeff on Jeff Mann, a disgrace to the badge, loser. Got another loser, too. And basically, did you see the study that the state is thinking of ditching those license tag stickers when you renew? I think, number one, there's no cost that's going to be benefiting the taxpayers. Number two, it's an aid to law enforcement. You can see right there if it's up to date.
Can't you punch in the license tag too?
Well, you can do that. They're working on that. But here's my winner of the week. You remember Ben Coward, who ran for sheriff of Fulton County? He got robbed the other day. But he had a decoy wallet. He had his regular wallet and a decoy wallet in his pocket. So he gave the decoy to the robber, and all is well.
Oh, my goodness.
It's tough enough to carry one wallet. We got to get out. Loser of the week for me, anyway, John McCain.
Oh, no. Our hero.
No, he's a Lone Ranger. He's not a team player. He's an egomaniac. What he did was unforgivable. And I guess the winner is Coca-Cola trying to reverse the declining sales of Diet Coke. They're now going to have Coke Zero Sugar. It didn't have sugar, so I don't know. Coke Zero Sugar. All right, we got to get out. See you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.